This is the Guns Magazine podcast, episode number 51. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent T. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting people who make up the world of shooting, hunting, and the firearms industry. But before we get started, let's talk about our sponsor, Kimber Firearms. Kimber was founded with the singular purpose of making every firearm the best it can possibly be, with a fit and finish that only practiced hands can achieve and appreciate. Whether you carry a Kimber for personal protection, hunting, or competition, know that their promise of quality without compromise is how they measure success. To learn more about Kimber Firearms, visit kimberamerica.com. Today is a special interview. I got to talk with Jim Gilliland. Best known for having made the longest sniper shot ever with a 7.62x51 rifle, otherwise known as the 308, Jim wears an awful lot of hats. He's a combat veteran, competitor, hunter, and is married to the equally talented rifle competitor, Melissa Gilliland. But all that just scratches the surface. He's so understated, it's really awe-inspiring to hear the details of his life story. Jim would certainly be entitled to own a giant ego, but talk to him for a little while, and you'll discover he's still an Alabama boy at heart, most at home chasing deer and squirrel in the woods. Now, recorded in the campground at the NRA Whittington Center near Raton, New Mexico, here's my talk with legendary shooter Jim Gilliland.
Hey there, everybody. I'm sitting here on the picnic table at the NRA Whittington Center, and look who I ran into, Jim Gilliland. Jim, thanks for joining us to have a little sit down.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, if folks don't know who you are, you've got a few claims to fame. You've been a Army Ranger. You are noted for a certain shot you took in Iraq. You are a PRS competitor. It's great talking to you.
You know, it's funny. You have accolades in life, whatever, that you've worked very hard for, and probably one of my best ones that keep coming back to me now is, I think I know you. You're Melissa Gilliland's husband. I'm like, yeah, I am. So,
exactly.
So,
put it in a quick nutshell. Your military, and then what you've done since then.
So life story in as few words as possible is I was born and raised in a very small town, North Alabama, right next to a national forest. Of course, hunted and fished and did all the outdoor things and sports and rodeo and everything. Graduated, left home, tried to do college, and realized really, really fast that I was probably not quite mature enough for that. Wasn't ready for it. So rather than wasting a lot of time and money, and with no other life skills, I joined the Army. And so I spent my first 6.5 years in the military in the Ranger Regiment in 3rd Ranger Battalion. Got to be a squad leader. Jumped into Afghanistan shortly after, actually 19 years ago in 10 days.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was a long time ago.
Wasn't that a night jump?
It was. Yep, in the Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Went back for a second tour there, and then left the regiment, went to teach at the NCO Academy, which was a huge, weird transition. Spent 18 months there.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and it was time to leave. So I got asked to come and stand up at sniper section in 3rd Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division. So I went over there, stood up a sniper section. That's where my shot was, whatever. Yeah. Everybody knows, the story, how it started or whatever. Right. Had a good time there. It was definitely a good experience. Got orders while I was still overseas to be a ranger instructor in 5th RTB in the Mountain Phase Ranger School. So I did that and really, really enjoyed that. Loved the people in Dahlonega. Very, very nice town. Left there and went and did my platoon sergeant time and first sergeant time in the 1st Brigade 3rd ID down in Savannah, Georgia. And then my last 5 years in the Army, I came back to Fort Benning. I worked in acquisitions and small arms acquisitions for a year, and then finished my first sergeant time, and then worked on the marksmanship manuals for the sniper and for general marksmanship in the infantry school, and then retired. And then toward the end of that, my Army career, I got back into the long-range shooting world and started competing in a few different matches, and then we got into shooting PRS, and Melissa was interested and got her into it. And of course, now she beats me almost every match. So.
I was going to say, she's doing well. And like you said, that's what a lot of folks know you for
that's
now.
That's right. You know, and there are vast things worse that I could be known for. So.
Well, talk a little bit about her.
Sure. So Melissa and I actually grew up together, and then she went one way and I went the other, and 20 years later we got back together.
Wow.
And it's been an amazing story with the two of us. She is a incredibly wonderful human being. I mean, she is, of course, I'm a little biased.
well, I hope so.
Right. You know, I mean, she's just a beautiful soul. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. She is so driven in everything that she does. I mean, she's, you know, the VP of Armageddon Gear and runs that company, you know, just...
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
My what do you call it, DOP kit, my bathroom kit is from Armageddon Gear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Very cool.
You know, she does that for 70 plus hours or however many hours a week she does that.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's a wife and a mom and a PRS, you know, shooter and ambassador for a bunch of companies. And, you know, she still runs my calendar because I don't even know how to, I don't do a quarter of that.
It's good to have a good woman in your side.
It absolutely is.
Well, very cool. So, well, let's go ahead and get it out of the way. You know, everybody, they know you for a lot of things, but they know you for the shot.
Right.
It was how far?
So it was 1,250 meters, which is roughly 1,370 yards.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Ramadi on September the 27th of 2005. And essentially the way the story goes is we were doing an overwatch on one of our line units that were moving in a cordon and search. And they started taking fire and one of our guys got killed. And then, you know, just observing the area that they thought it was coming from, we see this guy that was in a hospital balcony about 4 or 5 stories up.
That's nice of him.
Yeah, it was. Well, you know, the enemy always uses the advantages they have, and we weren't allowed to go into some places.
Sure.
So it was whatever. And it was, you know, I would love to tell you it was all skill, but it was more luck than anything. But you make your own luck too. I mean, we were shooting a lot at that point. And so I was shooting a standard M24, which is a Remington-built bolt-action, you know, rifle. With a fixed 10-power Leopold optic on it. It had a BDC turret in it, so I turned it for 1,000.
308?
308, yeah. Shooting a 308, that's right. The 175 grain Botel hollow point and the 118 LR load. You know, turned to 1,000 and tried to think, you know, from 1,000, you know, from 750 to 1,000 it drops this much, and then from 1,000 to another, you know, 250 meters past that or whatever. And, you know, just kind of made a quick shot or whatever that connected, you know. And
so first shot.
It was a one-shot engagement.
Yeah.
Yep. And so it was, of course, everything was rapid after that, you know.
Yeah.
So it was didn't have time to dwell or think about
it.
That came later with one of my other team leaders that came that night to replace the group that was there or whatever. And he was really, really good friends with Jason Benford, Staff Sergeant Benford that got shot earlier that day, passed away. And it was very somber at that point after that.
Yeah, you're not really celebrating. It's just you do what you got to do.
And actually, we didn't even, it was not a real big thing for us. And it wasn't until probably end of November or December, there was a reporter and a photographer that came from a UK publication that we sat down and did an interview or whatever. They were actually there for the EOD guys, and the EOD guys said, "Hey, you guys need to go talk to the snipers too while you're here." And and so we were talking about all of our guys and all the things that we'd done because we'd done a lot of good work here in Ramadi those last 6 months, and out of everything that came out, that kind of what stuck. So.
Probably one of those things that, you know, obviously, you know, we talked, you said you're proud of it, but it'd be nice to be known for something else.
Well, you know, it's funny. I've been typecast as a sniper guy, right? And for 17 of my 20 years, you know, I carried a pistol and carbine. I mean, that was my primary weapon systems, and I'm really not bad at shooting pistol and carbine. And, you know, so, you know, whatever. It is what it is.
So, okay, let's go there. Your favorite weapon system? Would you rather be carrying a pistol? Would you rather be behind a long-range rifle?
Well, so I have always said that your carbine is your fighting weapon, right? And one of the things that I always made sure of my guys, even though we were all snipers and we had long guns and things like that, we always patrolled with our carbines. That was our fighting rifle.
Exactly.
Because it is what you fight with. If you have to go to pistol, then there's a very specific reason, or things have gone horribly awry.
Exactly.
So you use your little gun to get to your bigger gun, right?
Yep.
And then you use that gun to where, if you need to, then you can get your standoff past that.
Yeah. Well, since you are known as a precision shooter and long distance shooter, what is it about that obviously it speaks to you, and you have a lot of skill that direction, but what is it that just really struck you that you wanted to even go that direction?
Well, I think a lot of that is personality driven too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pretty distinct characterization between the guys that flourish in the long gun and dudes that are assaulters or whatever, that enjoy that. And it's not that they can't go back and forth and be just as well as one as the other, but it's I think it's a personality thing.
Yep.
I really enjoy long range shooting. And when I was a kid playing Army with all my buddies or whatever, I always wanted to either blow stuff up or be the sniper. So it's always been there. And I've shot, carbine and pistol matches, and I really, really enjoy those. I like the fast pace, and I like driving the guns or whatever. But it's always been amazing where you can take this small projectile and push it down this metallic tube and hit something way off.
Way off, yeah.
It's just neat.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. So I guess we're kindred in that sense. Something that was fun when we were talking about before we got started was, we were talking about failures, and that's always been my belief, and you share it apparently, is you learn more from your failures. So talk about, everybody knows you for this mythical shot you took. Sure. Talk about some of the times things didn't go so well, and you learned some lessons from that.
Oh, specifically talking shots overseas or whatever, and due to a specific failure. We were doing this operation down the south end of town in Ramadi called the Mulab, and we were in the soccer stadium. And, we're observing. I see a guy, and he's watching us or whatever. And so we get ready to take this shot, and it's like 200 yards, which is a simple shot.
Right.
And this is actually with my carbine at this time. Had an ACOG. It was a rack grade M4 that we'd taken out. I put a match trigger, we suppress it, and I put the little ACOG on or whatever. So it was an easy shot for that. So I get set up on this guy, get lined up for him, dead to rights, and bang, take the shot, and it's like 3 feet off to the side.
At 200, yeah.
Yeah, and he's gone. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? And come to find out that instead of doing my proper PCCs and PCIs, all my inspections and checks, is the front knob on my ACOG had gotten a little loose, and tightened it up, and we were good after that.
Yeah.
But, and it's those little things that happen in your professional life that pulls, okay, so this is a reason why we do all of these things. There's a reason why you have checklist, or, there's a reason why you do things a specific way, put things in a specific place, because through your failures, you learn what's right.
Exactly.
So that gives you a reason. And if you never have a failure in anything you're going to do, you're going to eventually mess it up.
Exactly.
And one of the things that a lot of us, prior service guys, or even the guys that are in service right now, is we talk about how we did things then and why. And a lot of the things that worked, just because you didn't die and you were doing something doesn't mean you were doing it right.
Exactly.
It just means that you didn't get
got lucky
short on it. That's right. And so, if you're a professional at anything, the failures grow you more than any successes.
Absolutely. And I think you hit a good point there that you talk about personality. I think long distance shooters and snipers, it's that attention to detail, because that's what, I think about. I like the concept of being able to put that bullet down range, but I like the having to know that everything is torqued to the proper spec and everything's dialed down.
Right. Yep. And it's one of the things that we go through, and sometimes you get sloppy at it and sometimes you don't or whatever, but when everything comes together for that shot, it warms your heart. Into the instruction side of it, I really enjoy, more than doing this stuff myself, is I really enjoy getting somebody new on the gun, young, old, doesn't matter who it is, and you're like, I want you to shoot this target. And they're like, that's a long, I don't think so. It's like, I'll tell you what, just do this. And they shoot and they hit this target and they come off the gun and their face is lit up, they're smiling, and it's like, I can't believe you did that. And it's like, yeah, well, that was 8 football fields from here.
Yeah.
Because everybody has an idea how long a football field is, but that was 8 of them. And you're like, oh my gosh. And that's, I really enjoy that. One of the things I think we do we do a lot of things really well in our industry, and we do some things that are counter to growth or whatever. But anytime that you can educate somebody, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we do, that we should do a lot better. We do well, but we should do a lot better, is education, right? Everybody is afraid of what they don't know. And you grow up as a kid and you're afraid of the dark until you realize the dark is the same as the day. It's just you can't see it. But once you realize those things, if I handed you a 14-year-old a set of car keys and said, hey, you're going to drive across country, it's probably overwhelming for them. But it's something that, as normal adults, has been driving for a while. It's just something that we do, or we don't consider it. But it's an education piece that we have to bring into it that gives the understanding that these are just machines, they're just things, and if we know about them, then whether you're into it or not, if you know about it, the fear goes away because you understand it's just a thing.
Exactly, and it sounds like we kind of had a similar experience. I was a police sniper for a number of years, and then I kind of got out of it and didn't even hardly shoot long distances. And then when I got back with Guns Magazine, now I'm suddenly doing all these schools, and I've got all this gear. And what was really noteworthy to me was the fact the technology change that happened in that span. And I often say we're living in the golden age now because of the technology. But was that your experience when you started doing it more again? You're like, wow, that
it was. And so Melissa and I were pretty lucky. So when I first started, the first time I ever, really did the sniper thing, when we first got into it, was in '99. I was a member of the newly stood up sniper platoon in 3rd Ranger Battalion. And served with just giants of men, and I always felt like I was the drag butt of all of those guys. Because these guys have gone on to do some amazing feats, and very humbling when I look back on that. But what we were doing then was so rudimentary to what we are common now. We meticulous notes and we memorized stuff, and it was like, well, if I'm here, I know this is what my 0 to 1,000 is, and now if we go here, we're going to add this and subtract that and do this over here, and it was just ready knowledge that all of us memorized and burned in our memories. And now, and so when I got back into it and started shooting competitively, it was probably 11 or 12, so had been several years after. It was, well, here's your ballistic calculator, and here is this. And so we were still, at that point, we were using some old techniques with new technology, and we were beginning that learning curve. And then over the next, from 11 until today, it's not just the technology, it's gotten better. I mean, just the equipment, the machining's gotten better, the metallurgy's gotten better, the understanding has gotten better. All of the things that manufacturing goes into, all of these things have gotten better. But of course, hey, I'm this big Army sniper guy. I've been trained. I've done this. I've gone there. I'm a sniper. And then you go to some of these matches, that farm kid from Nebraska mops the floor with you. You're like, what? And it's you start picking up techniques from them, and it wasn't until I really got into shooting that type of marksmanship or that type of discipline, whatever, that I learned actually how to build positions, how to actually get stable on the gun, rather than just resting the gun and trying to hold it. Is how do you function those things and make the whole system work together with the scope, the gun, and your ammunition, whatever. So it's much more than the technology has gotten so much better. It's the techniques, and anytime you make something competitive, it's always a drive to get better.
Exactly.
And I think that's the biggest thing that has helped the long range shooting communities, because the competitive side has gotten there on a practical term, not just I'm going to lay on the ground and prone and I'm going to shoot. There's a time and a place for that, absolutely. And those guys are very meticulous shooters. They call wind wonderfully, but it's when you start putting it in very practical, because the positions we're in, the things that we do, and the shot processes, you're not so much under time and stress and things like that, but the positions that we're putting ourselves in and making some miraculous shots, and, in the end, is all of those translate directly to hunting scenarios. So I've made some shots in the hunting world now that I would not have dreamed at, 10 years ago.
On that topic, let's talk a little bit of opinion. Again, I've got a pretty decent background. You certainly do. And I'm an avid hunter, and you are. I'm not sure sure the long distance hunting community, the whole emphasis on taking these 800, 900 yard shots, I'm not sure that's a healthy thing.
So I am 100% there. And, you know, even though my capability will allow for that, actually this year I've got a great story for that. No, absolutely not. I'm not into long range hunting whatsoever. I think, you know, number one, it's hunting. It's not sport shooting, right? And so I think our egos have given us way too many opportunities to make asses out of ourselves. So this year, you know, I've said for a long time that I really don't want to take a shot on an animal past 500 yards. Not that I can't do it, but I would choose not to.
Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's exactly right. And so I'm in Utah. I got a mule deer tag, and me and another guy, you know, over 3 days of hunting, whatever. And you know, we see a lot of deer, and we're waiting for two. There's two in the area that we're really looking for, but it's starting to get kind of late in the, you know, in the days where I was going to Wyoming the next trip, and so we see a fairly nice deer come out, and I'm like, okay, that's my guy, you know, and it's through, you know, me losing, you know, respect for the situation and putting my ego in front of that. Deer walks out, you know, pull my rangefinder up, hit it one time. It's like, yep, that's 605 yards. I got this. Set it down, run my numbers, put it on my, you know, on my scope or whatever. An easy shot, but instead of taking my time and giving the respect due to it.
Because you're the great Jim Gilliland, right?
Exactly. You know, it's like, man, I got this. I do this all the time. Had my tripod built up, had a great shooting position, had rear rest, everything was set up, but I just didn't give it the time necessary, and I made a bad shot on the animal, and it got away from us, and we never found it.
Wow.
So, and, you know, I still, of course, I didn't bring it here because I flew, and you can't carry shell case, but I actually carry that 6.5 Creedmoor case in my pocket as another reminder of humility. So, and it was 30 years since I had made a shot, hit an animal, and not recovered it.
Wow.
And it was emotional. It was very emotional.
If that doesn't affect a hunter, I wonder if he should really be hunting, because I'm the same way.
Agree.
And that's the reason, you know, I always try so hard. In the grand scheme of things, if you wound a deer and it gets away, so what? But to you personally, I mean, why should that animal suffer for your shortcomings?
For your hubris. That's exactly right. You know, and just because the technology's there and the capabilities are there, I mean, what are you really doing other than bragging to somebody else on what you can do? Yeah. You know, because in the end, it's about the sport, it's about feeding your family, it's about the conservation piece of it, and it's about enjoying why you're there. And
exactly.
If you need to take a 2,000-yard shot on something, there's plenty of steel out there to do it.
Exactly. So, okay, let's drill down to the guns then. So what is your personal, both competitive gun and hunting guns?
Well, I kind of float between a few, right?
Like a lot of guys.
Sure, absolutely. Probably the guns that I always come back to the most is all of my Seekins precision stuff. I've known Glenn and I have been really good friends for many years now. We met at SHOT Show in 2007. It's my first SHOT Show I ever went to. And he walked up. It's kind of a crazy story. You know, we met. He walked up and he hands me a base and says, "Hey, I heard you're looking for building a new rifle. You're going to need this." And so that was really cool. But when he walked up, unbeknownst to him or anybody else, really, is one of my guys when I was in sniper section. I brought all my guys home or whatever else, but this guy named Ulysses Collette, came back, he got out of the Army, moved on with life or whatever else, and was hit kind of a rough spot and went down to visit his dad, and they're out fishing, and they were going around a corner in a boat, and he fell out and broke his neck and drowned. And this is, you know, the August after we got back in January. Wow. And so that was still, you know, I was like, man, what a tragedy. Yeah. He was such a wonderful guy. And Glenn was like uncannily the spitting image of Ulysses. And when he walked up to me in SHOT Show, you know, the hair stood up the back of my neck, and I'm like, please don't let this be an aberration. I don't want to go to the crazy farm at this point. What's, you know, and so anyway, and I don't know if that was more of the big connection from my side or whatever else, but Glenn is an amazing human being. He runs a great shop. He's a great guy. He's the American success story in the firearms industry. He's just a wonderful guy. But I mean, you know, he's a great guy, but he makes some very, very good product. And so, I started out shooting, his gas guns or whatever else, and I've moved into his Havoc series, his bolt action guns. Those are some of my favorite, regularly, always go-to guns.
Yeah.
My match rifle that I always keep coming back to was built by another friend of ours that lives in Washington, and that was Arbros, is the company. Travis and Jesse Riddell are the brothers that own the company. And it's a workhorse. I mean, that gun's got, probably 5 or 6 barrels it has had on it now. It's probably shot, upwards of 20, 25,000 rounds on it. And anytime I get something in to try out or test, or if I'm just not making the shots that I think I need to, I go grab that gun, bring it out, and it will tell me if it's me or if it's the gun.
Yeah.
And it's just it's been a staple of it's my workhorse.
Yeah.
In most of the long range classes and things like that I teach. But I mean, I've got GA Precision has built some amazing guns, and that's what Melissa shoots. And I've got one. Actually, George has got a rifle of mine right now that I'm going to have rebarreled, and then. This year or last year, Federal we're going back and forth with what new rounds they're going to make, and so I was like, well, if I'm going to load anything, I would, for hunting, I want a 6.5 PRC or a 28 Nosler, and I think that's going to spread, a huge cross section across the market. And so I had 2 guns built in that with another company called Blue Mountain Precision, a guy named Eric Anderson, and I used my 6.5 on my antelope hunts this year, and great. Wonderful guns. Yeah. But those are just a snapshot of a few.
Yeah.
But, between that, I don't really, of all the stuff that I have between those 4 or so groups, I really don't there's no need for me to get outside of it.
Right.
Not to say that I wouldn't, but it would have to be for a specific use.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of hits back on something that we talk about a lot here at Guns is we are such gear hogs and gear heads.
Yep.
And Americans especially, we want the magic bullet, the magic rifle, the magic mount.
Sure.
And, what I always tell people, the secret is buy more bullets and keep practicing. But sticking with gear, though, when you're talking to a guy and he says, well, I shoot pretty good out to 200-300, but what should I do to my gun to make it better? So what would you tell somebody like that?
So one of the easiest tricks, because very much like the military, everybody wants to buy time, not training, right?
Right.
So rather than going out and learning the thing and perfecting it, then I want to buy something that cuts the time out. Mm-hmm. But if there's one thing on a firearm, I think that can make anybody a immediate better shooter is a trigger. Because if you're not having to pull a heavy trigger or move, that distance or whatever, if you put a good trigger in any of your firearms, you're going to see exponentially an increase in your hit probability. And that's probably the one thing that you can do to any gun at this point. Make sure everything is fit and function correct. Make sure everything's torqued down and tight like we talked about earlier. But if you have to change one thing, the trigger is probably the thing that will make you a better marksman.
Yeah.
Well, allow you to be.
Right. And then buy a lot of bullets.
Time.
Yeah.
Yep. And, there's a lot of training companies. People are always talking about it. It's like, well, they'll spend X number of dollars on a gun, X number of dollars on a scope, they'll buy all of this stuff and spend a lot of money on it, but they're very hesitant to pay somebody to show them how to use it.
Yep.
And I think that's a big ego thing too. Or sometimes it's just, well, I didn't realize that I needed this, right? Because outside looking in, I can see a lot of things that people are doing that's not correct. Whether it's a body position thing or a trigger hand or placement, or there's things that are going on that they've been doing for a long time, and it's like, just humor me and try this once.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I can't believe that I hit that. And like, well, because you mechanically set up, because it's all a mechanical process.
Yeah. And that's something that again, we try to hit on is all the instructors that I know, and I'm blessed to know a lot of the top tier instructors in the world. A good instructor is forever a student. Most of the big names in this industry continue to go to training.
Yep.
Because what you said, that you cannot see if you've gotten lazy with your foot position or whatever. Absolutely. And it takes somebody to explain that to you.
And so I've done some of that too, and I continue to look, anytime I'm around somebody that I know is a better shooter, because I by no means ever claim to be a great, I'm good, I'm not great, right? And part of that's because I don't put my time into it. I enjoy it, but it's not work for me. Right. But I always say, hey man, can you watch me shoot? Let me shoot this stage, whatever. I want you to watch me shoot this stage, and I want you to tell me what I did wrong. Yep. Oh, come on, man. It's like, no, you don't understand. I want you to tell me, critique me.
Right.
Because I learn better. Kind of funny, huge difference between Melissa and I. When I learn better when you tell me what I did wrong. Mm-hmm. Like I know, I can feel what I did right. I can conceptualize that. Yeah. But I want to know what I did wrong. And so a lot of times I teach that way. It's like, okay, so you did this right, but here's what you need to work on.
Exactly.
And Melissa is a very positive reinforcement person. She needs to know, or she knows she needs to know what she needs to work on, but she enjoys positive reinforcement. And when you reinforce the positive to hers, it locks that into her. So it reinforces the positive aspect.
Different learning styles.
It's a different learning style. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, she has really taken off with that. And once I realized how that dynamic worked, kind of backed off her, left her alone, and of course she is just flown.
She's done okay.
Yeah. So
when it's all said and done, what should people know about Jim Gilliland? The easy question, right?
Yeah. So I get a lot of guys that talk about, my shot or whatever. And by all means, I'm an open book or anything like that. But the biggest thing that people are surprised, and the people that know me and that we work around each other, is like, why don't you use that as leverage more? Why don't you talk about that? Yeah. I was like, well, in the end, we grew up very humbly anyway, but, that was 15 years ago now. I'm very, very proud of all the things that I did. Not just that shot, but, I took, me and 9 guys with 4 extra from the National Guard and built a cohesive team and went to Iraq in 2005 and changed our landscape of our area and got recognized, for that. And it was all of my guys. And as proud a moment that was for me, that was something that I did. It's not who I am.
Right.
And I think veterans specifically and in general, we have a lot of issues in the veteran community with, the veteran suicide rate is out of control.
Right. 22 a day, supposedly.
22 a day, right? And so, I've thought a lot about it. I've talked to a lot of guys, and we always hear the same things. Like, man, I miss it. I miss getting out there and doing it. I miss being overseas. I miss all this.
Being part of the team.
The adrenaline, right? And so when I hear this, I was like, well, you know what I really think you miss? Is I really, really think that you miss the simplicity of life.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's just the military is pretty simple. Right time, right place, right uniform. That's 90% of your job.
Yeah.
But especially when you're overseas, is you're so disconnected from the world, right? Is you wake up in the morning, you eat breakfast, you don't die, you eat dinner, and you go to bed. You have a 10-foot by 10-foot area that's your home for a year. You have a duffel bag, a rucksack, an assault bag, and a bed, and probably your computer. And the only true dramas that come into life, or the only true, things that are pressed into that, is what you add into it, which is not much because you don't have a lot of time to do it. So I always try to get to these guys, but you need to really simplify where you want to be and who you are. Back off of all of the pressures that the world put on you and get simple. Don't worry about the next promotion or the next job or the next whatever, or better house or better car, or all of these anticipations that you think are pressed upon you. Yeah. Get simple and live simple. And I think once you back off of the things the pressures you're putting on yourself, I think you probably will see better. And that comes back to where I was talking about, the military was something that I did. It's not who I am. Yeah. I'm still trying to figure that part out.
Well, wonderful life advice we should all heed, especially myself. And it's been great talking to you, Jim. And I hope we can talk in the future, because I've really enjoyed this. And thank you for your service. I know you hear that, but we mean it, especially here at Guns and all of our readers. And whether that shot defines you or not, it was great that you were there and you could do what you needed to do. So
everything happens for a reason.
Exactly.
It was great to talk with the very down-to-earth Jim Gilliland. Despite everything he's already accomplished in life, I think you'd have to agree he's just a regular guy. And with that, we hope you're enjoying the Guns Magazine podcast. Please tell all your friends, even the butthurt liberals. Guns Magazine is #1 in the business, and we're using our decades of friendships to bring you the most interesting chats in the gun world. If you've got questions or comments, please drop me a line. That's editor@gunsmagazine.com. Make sure you don't miss out on anything by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast directory and YouTube. Of course, you can always listen and download the episodes at gunsmagazine.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out our sister publication, American Handgunner Magazine, at americanhandgunner.com. And finally, before we go, we'd like to remind you to check out our sponsor, Kimber Firearms, at kimberamerica.com. That's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. On behalf of the hardworking staff and crew here at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. Now get out there and get shooting.